After rewatching Man of Steel for like the 20th time, I'm more convinced than ever that this is still the definitive Superman film for our era, and James Gunn's Superman simply can't match its scope, depth, or emotional impact. Zack Snyder didn't just make a superhero movie, he constructed a modern myth, a cinematic epic that treats Superman not as a cartoonish do-gooder, but as a being of immense power, wrestling with what it means to live among us. From the opening minutes on Krypton, where we're shown a rich, dying alien world with its own culture, politics, and desperation, to the quiet, human moments of Clark wandering Earth in search of his place, the film invests in world building and emotional authenticity. Snyder's tone is grounded and serious, not in a way that drains the joy out of the character, but in a way that makes his choices feel real and consequential. This Superman isn't instantly embraced or trusted. He's feared, questioned, and even doubted by those closest to him, which makes his eventual decision to stand for humanity far more powerful. Henry Cavill's Clark Kent is layered. His morality isn't automatic. It's earned through years of self-restraint, isolation, and wrestling with his father's warnings about the dangers of revealing himself. That's what makes his heroism compelling. He chooses it, fully aware of the personal cost. Gunn's approach, at least from what's been revealed, is a brighter, more comic book faithful style filled with optimism and classic heroism, which has its own charm but feels smaller and safer. Without the grit, moral complexity, and real-world texture, Gunn's Superman risks being more like a Saturday morning cartoon brought to life, entertaining in the moment but lacking the staying power of Snyder's mythic vision. The action in Man of Steel remains unmatched. Snyder stages battles like no other director in the genre, with sequences that feel like titans clashing. Every punch, every sonic boom, every building collapse carries real force and consequence. The fights between Superman and Zod's forces are more than just spectacle. They're physical manifestations of ideological conflict, with Superman trying to minimize collateral damage while facing opponents who see Earth as expendable. This is where Snyder's realism shines. If superpowered beings fought in our world, it wouldn't be neat or bloodless, it would be devastating. Gunn's action, based on early impressions, appears more stylized and lighter in tone, which may make for fun viewing but lacks the bone-rattling weight Snyder delivers. And then there's Michael Shannon's General Zod, one of the most memorable villains in any superhero film. Zod is not evil for evil's sake. He's a soldier bred for a singular purpose, to protect Krypton. His mission to terraform Earth isn't born of malice, but of desperation, making him a tragic figure whose destruction feels inevitable yet deeply sad. That moral grayness forces Clark into an impossible choice, and when he makes it, it lands like a gut punch precisely because we understand both sides. Gunn's villain setup, at least from what's known, doesn't seem to carry that same level of moral complexity, leaning more toward traditional, clear-cut hero versus villain dynamics. And we can't talk about Man of Steel without mentioning Hans Zimmer's iconic score, which doesn't just accompany the film, it defines it. Tracks like Flight and What Are You Going to Do When You Are Not Saving the World capture both the awe-inspiring power and the quiet vulnerability of Superman. The music builds emotion from the inside out, so that by the time Superman takes his first flight, you feel it as a moment of triumph, not just for the character, but for you as a viewer. Snyder's visual sensibilities match that emotional heft. Sweeping wide shots, natural light, and a painterly attention to framing make every scene feel like it belongs on the wall of a museum. Gunn's bright pop-infused cinematography may look pleasing, but it lacks that operatic grandeur, that sense that you're watching events of historic significance unfold before your eyes. Thematically, Man of Steel operates on a level most superhero films never touch. It's about identity, responsibility, sacrifice, and the eternal tension between where you come from and where you belong. Snyder isn't afraid to let the film sit with hard questions. Is humanity ready for someone like Superman? Does he owe his loyalty to the planet of his birth or the one of his heritage? Should he act as a savior or as one of us? These questions give the film its staying power. Gunn's Superman, while undoubtedly sincere, appears more straightforward in his moral messaging. Superman is inherently good and inspires goodness in others. That's fine for a quick dose. But it doesn't linger in the mind the way Snyder's heavier, more introspective approach does. Finally, we have to talk legacy. When Man of Steel released in 2013, it didn't just reintroduce Superman, it redefined how superhero origin stories could be told. It influenced the visual style, tone, and ambition of an entire era of comic book films, both in DC and Marvel's camps. It remains a film people debate, analyze, and revisit more than a decade later. Gunn's Superman might be fun, colorful, and more faithful to the comic tone, but is it going to reshape the genre? Is it going to be studied years from now for its thematic depth and cinematic ambition? Probably not. That's why, after my 20th rewatch, I can say with full confidence that Man of Steel is the richer, bolder, and more human take on the most powerful superhero in comics. A take that will outlast trend cycles and box office weekends, standing as the definitive Superman story for a long time to come. This has been AJ's Insights, where we dive deep into the movies and shows you love. So if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more passionate analysis, and drop a comment letting me know whether you agree that Snyder's Superman stands above guns. Stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.